Hi, this is Dr. Livingston again, and I hope I'm not cutting my head off somewhere because I wanted to make sure I was able to show my kitchen counter. The thing that we're going to be doing in this particular video is it's based upon what some of y'all may have done in your undergraduate classes. Maybe there's a little activity that teachers can use that we use something that's called the Big Inch, and we use this in third grade to introduce the concepts of measuring and also the concepts of fractions and whole numbers. So I kind of bring that off of there. What I'd like for you to do is, this is just adding machine tape, and if you don't have adding machine tape, you can just cut yourself some strips of paper. It really doesn't matter. But we're going to make what I call the big shrink, okay? Now on the paper, what I'm going to do, now if you'll notice on the Big Inch, it started with 0 and 1, and then it has all the different little marks on a ruler, and I like to do it in different colors because for some reason it helps kids to see things. And we're going to start similarly with the Big Shrink. So what you need to do, we'll just label this on the bottom, the Big Shrink. I'm not real creative with names, am I? Okay, so just kind of call it the Big Shrink. Okay, now I have found that with children, when they're doing dilations, or what we call linear transformations, and learning about percentages, they understand percentages that are smaller than 100% first. Okay, so we're going to start just kind of like what we did with the Big Inch. We're going to start with a 0 and a 1. Okay, and hopefully if the children did this activity when they were in third grade, when we take the same activity and do it slightly different in fifth grade, they will have that anchor, to kind of hook back into. Okay, now just like on the Big Inch, we're going to rename some of these things. I like to use colors of the rainbow when I do these things. I don't know why, because it's like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. I just kind of always tend to do things in order like that. So I'm going to write on here that 0 can also be written as 0%. That means you don't have any of it. And if you have 1 of something, you have 100% of it. You have all of it. So I just kind of relabeled that right in here. You see? Okay. All right. So now if I want to find where 50% would be, I just kind of fold it in the middle. And that mark in the middle is 50%. Okay. Like that. And then if we fold it again, we can figure out where 25% is. And then this way we're also relating it back to our fractions. Fold it over here. And we have 75%. Okay, for some reason, just like when we're introducing fractions, there's something about the way children think about things that when it's introduced using the Big Inch, they seem to catch on to the, when it's used as measurement first, like linear measurement. They tend to catch on a lot faster than when you try to use fractions like with pizzas or things. It doesn't seem to work as well with the kids. And I have found that the same thing happens with the Big Inch. And then what you can do with this is to kind of let the kids have a sense of what the different percentages mean. You can have them like say, oh, put your finger about where 10% would be. And so they can put their little finger, kind of in the right place. Put your finger about where 80% would be. And so then you can kind of talk about, would it be closer to 75%? Would it be closer to 100? What's the more reasonable answer? And this kind of thing will also get them prepared for when those new Common Core assessments come in, when they have to model the way things look. Wonderful model for percentages. Okay, so that's that. The way we're going to use the Big Shrink, you should have one of your packages says up at the top, the Big Shrink. Okay, now this particular instructions say dilate this figure by 50%. That just means that we're going to do a linear transformation. And on this picture, if this is 100% over here, 50% has to be back here, so they can see that, oh, if 100, we're going to use this to make the figure half as big, the size of the figure half as big as it was before. We're not going to use this actual one. This one was just kind of for work. The way I like to do this, we can use lots of adding machine tape. Fairly inexpensive. You can buy it at Walmart. I'm not going to do every one of these that are in the packet. I'm going to leave some of them for you all to do. But the first one, if you'll notice over here, there's a dot for O. or it could be dot for 0. You know, back over here, that's where the figure would be 0%. Okay, it's at the origin. Okay, and then right here, the figure is kind of life size. So we want to make it 50%. All right. So now, if you'll notice real carefully, there are some yellow lines that go from the origin to the vertices of your polygon over here. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do, I think I've said that 3 times. Take your piece of paper, and we're going to mark. Let's see, Phil, I left my pencil over here. There. Okay, we're going to line up the origin. I'm going to tilt the camera down a little bit too. Hang on just a second, so I'll make sure you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so if you line up the origin with one of the vertexes, and I like to mark that, this is the origin. That point right here would represent point D. Okay, if we want it to be 50%, this represents 100. This figure right now represents it 100% from the origin. So if we fold it in half, like we did with our big stretch, the mark halfway between, I like to call this D prime. I put a little quotation mark next to it, D prime. So as I'm marking through here, we can line that back up again, and I can put a little mark on that yellow line, notating this was D prime. It's not D, it's the new D, isn't it? Okay, so we got to pick another point. It doesn't matter how you do this. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to start, mark the origin. There was the origin. This point over here represents C prime. Okay, if we want to, no, it doesn't represent C prime, it's just C. If we want to find out where C prime is, we need to fold it in half because it says to dilate by 50%. So we need to get back to the 50% point. Okay. We fold that. Here's the little mark where the C prime would be. Okay, and then go over here, line it up with 0 and C again. Put a little mark on your line, on the yellow line, and that represents C prime. Okay? You can just turn it over. That's generally what I do. Now we're going to go for point B. So this would be the origin. This here represents B. Now what we want is we want B prime, the 50% mark. Once again, fold it. Okay. Now one of the standards for mathematical practice is for children to look for and make sense of repeated patterns in mathematics. And this particular activity where they build this model over and over again, they will begin to see that, oh, we can build these things the same way over and over and over again. Okay, so that mark right there represents B prime. Okay, and then the last one, we got one more point. Okay, we got the origin, and we've got A. Okay, once again, just fold it in half so we can find A prime, 50% A prime. Okay, so A prime will be right in here. Okay, now if I take my ruler, okay, this is where it gets kind of cute here. A is connected to B. So I'm going to take A prime and I'm going to connect A prime with B. Okay, B is connected to C. Kind of like that old children's song. The leg bone's connected to the head bone, or however that goes. Okay, C is connected to D. Okay, and then D is connected back to A. Okay, and then look, voila. We have a figure that is proportional and the sides are 1/2 the size of the original figure. And that's what we call the big shrink. Okay, now the other dilations, I'll let y'all do those on your own. I think that, we're going to be doing the same, the same procedures over and over again because it works. Like I said, just just keep tearing off pieces of tape measure, what do you call it, adding machine tape, and then you can just make all kinds of figures that are half the size or whatever percentage that you want it to be. Okay, all right, thank you. See you later.